The leadership team, which consists of Chair Krigler, Co-Chair Cordova, and Spokesperson Blaylark, presented a list of possible subcommittee topics, and then task force members gave feedback and suggestions on that, which we then, as a facilitation team, gathered and compiled. We then distributed that to the, and by the way, the live stream should be working now, Chair Krigler. The facilitation team gathered and compiled that feedback and distributed that list to you all via email, and we received quite a number of responses to that email, and we are grateful for that. We'll present that here in just a moment. But even for those who did and for those who didn't submit responses, tonight is the best opportunity for you to effect a sort of final revision of the subcommittee topics and a determination of which should be prioritized. So I just want to emphasize that we as the facilitation team have just been a conduit of information from leadership team to task force, back to leadership team, and now back to you all. We have not editorialized or made any decisions as it relates to subcommittees. That's for you all to make. And so that's what we're going to dive into here shortly. If we can go on to the next slide. This is the list of subcommittees that had been discussed before we received responses from task force members via email, and I'll just read them out quickly. A subcommittee on police presence, a subcommittee on recruitment, hiring, and retention, a subcommittee on police culture and climate, a subcommittee on accountability and discipline, a subcommittee on racial and other profiling disparities, a subcommittee on training, a subcommittee on the development of a civilian review board, a subcommittee on atonement, and a subcommittee assessing the Elgin Police Department's allocation of resources, both financial and time. So these are 9 subcommittees, and my understanding of our conversations to date is that this body believes that it would not be feasible to have all 9 meet all at once. And so I think our task is to, first of all, determine whether any of these should be combined or regrouped, and then secondly, to determine which subcommittees should begin their work sooner than later. Are there any questions just initially before we move on about this list of 9 subcommittees?
Yes. Sorry.
Task Force Member Bailey and then Task Force Member Zaldivar.
I forgot I was supposed to raise my hand.
Oh, no, please, don't worry.
I'm not sure what you mean by number 3, Subcommittee on Police Culture and Climate.
The way you said that has a certain, well, it sounds kind of cool the way you're saying it. I would love for whichever task force member brought this forward, if they would be comfortable sharing any thoughts behind it. These were generated by the task force. So if there's a task force member that wants to speak to the Subcommittee on Police Culture and Climate.
I didn't bring the topic up, but when I have cop friends, and my definition of it for me, police culture in regards to what we're trying to accomplish, police culture says if one cop does something that's bad, so to speak, that the other cop says nothing. That's police culture. The climate might be such a way in a certain police department where, it's that blue line that people like to speak so much of that you don't cross. And I think in order for us to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish, we have to change that culture. So that's what it means to me.
Thank you, Task Force Member Horton. A colleague passed me a note saying that this also had to do with the review of internal complaints. And I just wanted to, before I get to the other hands that are up, Task Force Member Horton, if you're still there, I just wanted to understand for you the differentiation between police culture and the accountability subcommittee, how they might look at different things.
Repeat the question?
Yes, sir. I was just asking what in your mind is the difference between what the police culture subcommittee would review and what the accountability subcommittee would review? I think you might be muted if you're trying to speak. I can't hear you.
Yeah, I think the accountability part kind of comes after. Changing the culture, I would hope that we never get to the point where we have to hold them accountable, but in reality, that's going to happen. But hopefully it would be on a lower level
Okay.
Or done more internally if we, had a better culture about policing themselves.
Understood. We've got Task Force Member Zaldivar, who tried to speak earlier, and then I'll go Williams, Krigler, Calamer.
Yeah, I was going to ask a question about the process. So I know that you're giving time for everyone to speak. So if one of us made a proposal to join a couple subcommittees together, is that going to take place before any of us speak so that we can vote on the motion? Or is that going to take at the moment that we speak at the suggestion?
I think if I understand, Kevin, your question, my intention was after we get through this little round of questions here, each task force member would have a chance to say, these are the subcommittees that I think we should prioritize, and these are the ones on which I would like to serve. And then at that point, we would compile all of that. We're keeping a little, I don't know what you want to call it, a little sheet that has all of that. And then after we've compiled all that input, the committee, the task force would, we'd look for consensus on the final list of subcommittees and the prioritized ones. Okay, thank you. So let's see, let's go to Task Force Member Williams and then Chair Krigler.
Yes, my question was, as far as the accountability and the culture, I was just gonna suggest is that those two could possibly be combined if we're looking at police culture and how it was defined, because that goes right into accountability.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just wanted to make that suggestion as a committee that could be combined.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think we, I'm sorry, the slides are jumping around. I'm not sure what. Yes, I think we did have some similar comments via email, but we'll make note of yours as well, Task Force Member Williams, to maybe combine 3 and 4, and we'll revisit that here in just a minute. Thank you very much. Task Force, Chair Krigler.
Okay, in regards to the police culture and climate, what I was looking at that as being the practice of entrapment and rearresting persons with records, pretextual stops, and the harm they cause the citizens of the community, primarily the African-American community, the practice of forced engagements and the collateral damage to the Black community, as well as the atonement part of that. I'm thinking should be combined into that to the Black community.
You mean to say, Chair Krigler, to take subcommittee on atonement and combine it with subcommittee on police culture and climate?
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Task Force Member Calamer.
I think we're on a common theme here, which is I believe we can combine some subcommittees so that everybody can be heard and these different subjects and themes can feed into the larger subcommittee. So for example, recruitment, hiring, and retention would certainly play into training. So you could combine 2 and 6.
Yes.
You could combine number 5, subcommittee on racial and other profiling disparities. That could certainly go into, the Civilian Review Board, atonement. I would like to see this list maybe whittled down if we all agree, and maybe we can have broader subcommittees that certainly pay attention to the sub themes, and then maybe we don't feel like we're missing out on any one committee.
Yeah, thank you for that input. Let me just check with our team, with Cameron, with Sheila, and just make sure we're tracking each of the suggestions as it relates to reorganizing the subcommittees, and then we can take those up with the body one by one. Cameron or Sheila, is that, I can't see you, so could you?
Yes, I've been noting down the.
Okay, perfect.
Me
Okay.
as well. Me as well.
Thank you both. Okay, very good. We have 2 great note takers. Task Force Member Flickerman and then Task Force Member Haben.
Yeah, I wanted to hear a little bit more about the subcommittee on atonement and what the intention. I remember there, and forgive me, I don't remember who suggested it, but that came from a meeting, and I want to hear. I think the comment was somewhat brief, so I'd love to hear a little bit more about that subcommittee and what the intention behind that would be, like what would be discussed.
Task Force Member Haben, I think, had that suggestion. Is that right?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Task Force Member.
Oh, okay. So this leads into like what I was going to suggest for combining. So when I was talking about a subcommittee on atonement, and atonement was the word that came to mind. I related my experience in listening to various community members from different generations talking about the same officers committing egregious offenses against members of our community. There's, so there's this historical legacy that's gone on.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, at this point in time, many of those officers are gone. And so to me, it's almost like when I think about this, there needs to be a public acknowledgement, I believe, that this history exists in Elgin or has existed in Elgin, and there needs to be some kind of atonement or something.
Mhm.
And sort of like, if you want to think of South Africa and Nelson Mandela's hearings on reconciliation, it's in that, and so that's where I was bringing this idea forward. And to me, it's a global accountability. And atonement could fit under that.
Okay.
That the city of Elgin allowed these things to happen.
Mhm.
They're past things, but they're things that are surfacing still because we really never ever get to the root
Right.
of what's happened.
Understood. So what I heard you say there was you could see it being combined with another subcommittee so long as it was dealt with robustly. Is that right?
So I had.
I'm sorry,
Why I asked.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Aubrey, before you jump in, I just want to clarify from Denise. Were you suggesting that the subcommittee on atonement still needed to stand alone?
No,
or were you saying it could be part of accountability? Or
I'm looking at it as a higher level accountability.
Understood.
So
Okay.
it could fall under there.
Let me turn to Aubrey. Go ahead.
So I asked because I think that I completely agree with you, Denise. And I think along those lines, I think it would be helpful to explore in the conversation on atonement how there has been harm done to
Mhm.
members of the Black community, and
Mhm.
what, looking at that harm and looking at what the generational
Right.
disparities that have been caused by that harm, and what things other communities could have done, what things we could do, what
Right.
things our community could do to even further than just a public apology, right
So-
that wrong. And so that's where I might say that seems like a pretty big undertaking. So I would be in favor of maybe leaving that as its own subcommittee.
Okay. Well, what I want to do is return to Aubrey's sort of and Denise's broader points about what these subcommittees should do, because that is very important. For now, I just want to, and Aubrey finished with this, potentially keeping it as a standalone. That's a great piece of input. I just want to see if there are any other questions, clarifying questions, because we want to keep moving. But are there any other questions from task force members about the subcommittees as they're listed on the screen? Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'd like to take a look at some of the emailed.
Larry, I'm sorry, I didn't get a chance to mute my phone in time.
No problem, Reverend.
Yeah, thank you so much, Larry, for your kindness. I'd like to say that I hope that in some of these subcommittees, I know we're combining, that's great. I hope that we talk about look into the school and how that is affecting, especially into my generational, how that is affecting a lot of the African Americans and other Latinos that are getting, pulled in by the police for an infraction in the school, and that's school to jail is very it's a whole state problem, United States problem.
Sure.
And I like to look into that.
So
Okay.
you just want to make sure that
I just right.
in one of these subcommittees it's covered.
Yes. Thank you.
Chair Krigler, I saw your hand.
Yeah, Walter, I believe that was supposed to be within the police presence as well, of their being present in the schools.
Great.
In regards to the, as you said, the prison or school to prison pipeline. Yes.
Great.
Thank you both. Yeah, thanks for that. Okay.
Thank you.
So let us then look at this list of comments that were emailed to us. And this is something I want to get through relatively efficiently, because again, I want to give each task force member a chance to give us their own preferences, and I want to also be efficient with our time tonight. But I do want to, I'm just trying to think if there's a way for me to more easily see everybody at once, and I don't think there is. So here's what I'd like to do. Let's go through these couple of suggestions. There also will be suggestions that we've captured here tonight that we should tackle. And what I'm looking for here is, does anybody feel strongly that they can't support a particular suggestion? Can't. And if so, please let us know that. So I'm going to go through each of these suggestions. If you need some clarification, of course, let us know. But what I'm looking for is to see if anyone can't support it, and otherwise, if you're comfortable supporting it, comfortable with it moving forward. So the first one, and these are all directly from task force members via email. The first one is to move the subcommittee on atonement under the subcommittee on accountability as a subset and potential outcome of the work. So certainly heeding task force member Flickima's comments in this regard. But is there any task force member that feels strongly that they cannot support that shift?
I think as long as we're moving subcommittee ideas under other subcommittee proposals, as long as that's stated as a task that subcommittee will accomplish or look into, I don't think we need to worry about anything disappearing.
Okay.
I think we need to be mindful and keep track of what each subcommittee does.
Okay.
So if atonement is its own committee or under another subcommittee, we need to just be careful that we pay attention to it.
Understood.
Training and culture, if it's under recruitment, hiring, and retention, we need to pay attention to make sure that's addressed.
Fair enough. I'm smiling just because you're getting ahead of me, but that's okay. So anybody else want to share a comment on the atonement suggestion to combine it with accountability? Otherwise, we're going to move forward. Yes, Pastor.
I totally agree. I totally agree with Tish. As long as we don't ignore those in those subcommittees, I totally agree with her for any of these.
Okay, so we will plan to move the subcommittee on atonement under the subcommittee on accountability. We had a suggestion to move the two subcommittees on training and culture and climate to combine that with one on recruitment, hiring, and retention. So I'd like to see whether there are serious concerns about that. Oh, I have a hand. Task Force Member Blanchard.
Yes, I think training should be its own subcommittee. I mean, the culture, climate, and the recruitment, because if you're looking at training, you're looking at the whole scope of it. How are they trained? What are they trained upon? Rather than recruitment is totally different than the training piece.
Okay.
I just think it'll be.
It's a lot.
I think it's going to be a robust subcommittee.
I understand. Chair Krigler?
I'm agreeing with that. I think they need to be separate, alone subcommittees. I don't think they could be combined.
Appreciate that. Does anybody feel strongly the other direction? Does anybody feel strongly about the combination suggestion? So I think we will, I see Reverend or Chair, Task Force Member Brockway. Let me get it right.
I'll take whatever title you.
You've got some pastoral in there somewhere, I think.
I have
Reverend Brockway.
That's what I thought. I I'm a religious man, so I got to call the man by his proper title.
I was just thinking that I appreciate it. I would actually agree with Task Member Blanchard and actually split it at the end, so that culture, climate, recruitment, hiring, retention. I would even include promotion there, but that training and then the rest.
I see. Okay, so training is its own, and then the rest is a combined. Is that what you mean, Reverend? Okay.
Yes.
Task Force Member Calmer.
And Larry just acknowledged that he added promotion as an.
That's correct. That's right. So just to clarify, Task Force
Thank
Member
you.
Brockway was saying training as its own subcommittee, and then a culture, climate, recruitment, hiring, retention, and promotion, which I think I could eat a sandwich before I finish saying, but nevertheless, SA as its own subcommittee. But thanks. Task Force Member Calmer.
Perhaps culture and climate could be a subset of training. You're training for a more positive culture and climate, addressing those issues when you train new recruits, new employees.
Okay.
I really think we can combine, and it looks like we're on our way, some of these subcommittees, because we started out with 9 and we're a task force of 18. So, you know, we need to get a certain number that's practical, that we can subdivide amongst our staff here, our people, and go from there. I don't want to ignore any of these important subjects, but I think that a subcommittee can take on maybe more than one related topic.
Okay. Well, let me do this. I've got a couple of suggestions here, and I'd love to just kind of do a quick kind of straw poll here. It doesn't have to be a formal vote per se, but one was to keep training and keep training as a standalone, mixed culture and climate with the other terms listed there plus promotion. The other was to combine training and culture, and the other was to combine all 3. So basically it's training and culture, or training, culture, recruitment, hiring, and retention. Those are the 3 options. So if folks would hold up a number, that would be the easiest way, I think, to do this. If you want training to stand alone, is a 1. If you want training and culture to be together, and then the recruitment piece separate, that's a 2. And if you want the combination of all 3 together, you're going to put 3. So this will require people to be on video, if at all possible. I see several 1s, or a couple of 1s. Okay, so I'll need some help from the team here with counting, because it's hard for me to. All right, so I have Calamer 3, Brockway 1. Pastor Brayler, where are you? Can't hear you, sir.
I really don't know what you're doing, so I'm going to abstain. I kind of got lost in all
That's
this.
okay.
So
I was just saying,
can I
training.
abstain?
You may abstain.
All right, I know what you're doing. Let's go right ahead.
All right,
Let
Task
them
Force
think.
Member Haben is a 3. Task Force Member Brockway, I think, was a 1. Blanchard was a 1.
Bailey's a
Flickamo,
3.
Bailey's a 3.
Yeah.
Flickam is a 2. Williams, did you have a vote on this? Task Force Member Williams? She's looking for her mute button, I think. I see Ariola's a 1. Task Force Member Blair, did you have an opinion here? 2.
Can you
Task Force-
clarify what we're
Yes,
voting
ma'am.
on again?
Yeah. So basically, we're deciding whether training should stand alone, in which case you'd give me a number 1. Should training be combined with culture, and then the other matters separate, number 2, or if all 3 should be combined, number 3.
Oh, 2.
2, okay. Task Force Member Blair, you were, is that a 2, sir? I couldn't tell. I think it's a 2. Zaldivar is a 1, I believe. Krigler is a 2. Horton, 2. Is there anybody who I didn't hear from or didn't call out the name? All right, we will tabulate that separately and circle back here in just a minute. I'll ask Cameron and Sheila to relay that to me when they can, or if others can help. Okay, we have one additional suggestion that I think is very important that we need to agree on. And this is the whole idea of how we will determine membership of a particular subcommittee. As you'll recall, in order for if a subcommittee wanted to meet with more than 5 members of the task force, and city manager, if you're there, I just want to make sure I'm correct. If is it 5 or more, or is it more than 5? I think it's more than 5, but I'm not sure. If there were to be more than 5 people who wanted to serve on a subcommittee, the Open Meetings Act would require that those meetings be held publicly in a forum like we are in now, or once we're back in person at a publicly posted meeting. And there was a suggestion that we cap subcommittee membership to be 5 or fewer as a helpful strategy for the candor of the conversations among the team. So this would require that some methodology, some process be in place for deciding who would serve on which subcommittees, as opposed to it just being a self-selecting process. Chief Lally, did you want to share something?
You had asked about the city manager to confirm that. He stepped away, but when he gets back, we can confirm.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Yeah, appreciate that. So do we have thoughts on this? Whether there should be a limit to the number of members on a subcommittee and they could potentially meet privately, or whether we should allow as many people as want to serve, and then those meetings would be public. Task Force Member Williams.
I think limiting the number, and then if our subcommittees need to cross-reference, that can happen. But I think, trying to have various public meetings when, that could be a little too hectic. So I think limiting it would work.
Okay. One thing I should just note is that, of course, no matter whether these meetings are private or public, all the work of the subcommittees would be reported back to the task force. I'm sure everybody assumed that, but just to be clear. Task Force Member Flickema and then Pastor Blaylock.
Just kind of jump in. The chief wants to jump in.
Hey, Chief.
Yeah, the city manager is here, and I think this will help guide your discussion real quick.
Okay. Manager, go ahead.
I'm sorry, it's my understanding there was a question as to whether subcommittees are less than 5 persons, whether they were subject to the Open Meetings Act requirements. Any subcommittee that's created by the police task force is subject to all of the notice and Open Meetings Act requirements that the entire commission is. So that 5-person limitation is only for ad hoc conversations that
I see
outside of the purview. So
that I think would render this discussion topic a little bit moot then, because there is no meeting membership under the threshold for the Open Meetings Act as it relates to a subcommittee of this body. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Well, let me just, Pastor Blaylock and Task Force Member Flickaba, would you mind if I just moved on from this? It seems a little bit moot at this point.
I do have one thing I want to say.
Okay, real quickly, and then we'll keep
very
moving.
quickly. I would still advocate for having a lower number of people in the subcommittees. I think that more will get done if there's 5. And I agree that it should be an odd number of individuals, as was suggested a couple of weeks ago, I think.
Okay.
I totally concur. That's what I was going to say. I totally concur.
Okay. Well, thanks to the person who suggested this, and we're just going to keep moving because of what the city manager indicated, and I appreciate that. I'm glad I asked. Okay, to Cameron and Sheila, can you either update this slide with some of the additional suggestions we've gotten tonight, or just read out a couple of those suggestions, please, as it relates to combining subcommittees?
Yes. Yes. So right now we have the main suggestions for combinations, and I can go back to this previous slide. So the main combinations would be accountability and atonement together.
Right.
The training, and then training and culture, or training, recruiting, and hiring. I don't have the final vote on that. Sheila, do you have that?
So the last one that you mentioned, that was 3 people voted. to have it combined with the training. Yeah, 3 people voted.
So which option one? Training and culture, or training?
The training, 4 people voted for training to be on its own, and 3 people voted for the training to be combined with the culture and climate.
Okay.
Culture and climate.
And did anybody, we had some votes, I think, for all 3 to be combined, didn't we?
Yeah.
How many were those?
Hold on. I have 5 recorded. It was going so fast. I don't know if I missed it, but I have 5 tallied up. So
okay.
I didn't miss nobody.
Well, I think the reality is it's closely divided, and so I'd rather not force a combo when there's not a clear consensus of the group at this point. It's clear that training, needs a lot of attention, as do the other topics. Task Force Member Barkway, go ahead.
I'm going to push back just a little bit right there and say it seems like there was at least a pretty strong majority of having a combined shape. I mean, if it was 5 that all 3 should be combined,
and
that
4 to
seems
combine
pretty
training
significant in terms of
Okay. Okay. Well, I guess let's do it this way. Would folks have? I know we kind of talked about this before, and I do want to put a bow on this so that we can get to everybody's preferences quickly. Do folks have major heartburn about having training be combined with police culture, climate, and then the recruitment, hiring, retention, promotion, as long as all of those topics are thoroughly explored in that subcommittee? Are there folks that have significant heartburn about that?
Can you do me a favor and repeat
Yes,
that again, please?
Of course. I know
Thank
we're a lot of moving parts here. So I think what I heard Task Force Proclamé say was, I think there's a lot of people that would like to combine training with some other things. And so could we combine, on your screen, it would be numbers 2, 3, and 6. Could we combine training with recruitment, hiring, retention, and promotion, and police culture and climate? And does anybody have major heartburn on that? Let me go to Task Force Member Blanchard and Zaldivar.
Yeah, as I said before, I just think that's too robust of a subcommittee. I think you're going to have too many topics, too many things to look at, too many things to analyze, with you having that much. I think training is totally different than recruitment, hiring, and retention. And I think the byproduct of looking at the training, looking at the retention, the hiring will be the culture and the climate.
Do you see any way that training could be combined with culture and climate?
I would rather see training stand on alone, and then have the retention, hiring, and retention. Retention, hiring, recruitment, hiring, and retention mixed with culture and climate.
Okay. I want to make these comments relatively brief. There are 6 hands up, and I just want to make sure we can keep moving. Zaldivar, then Chair Krigler, then Calmer, then Williams. Task Force Member Zaldivar.
Hi, Larry. I just wanted to readdress the question I asked earlier, and that is because if we make a motion to combine subcommittees, it needs to be voted on in order. So I would like to wait to figure this out before. I also would like to make a motion to combine other subcommittees, but I'll wait for my turn to speak. However, on the notion of this topic itself, I believe training should be a standalone, because training should go into the roles of the police department, and the roles of the police department is something that should be, again, looked at separately than other categories.
Okay, Chair Krigler.
Yeah, I'm looking at pretty much the same thing, and I just don't see the of combining these at all. They hold on their own. They really do. And especially the subcommittee on police culture and climate, and the subcommittee on recruitment, hiring, they're just different things. They're just totally different things. And then the other thing that I do have to kind of leave out there is we're missing some persons today. And I'm sure that they also would like to voice on this. So yeah, I just don't see combining these at this time. And training definitely has to be on its own.
Task Force Member Calmer.
I'm just looking at the numbers. We have 9 different subcommittees before us, and we have 18 people. That averages to 2 people per subcommittee. We know that's not practical.
Well, let me
So
just
I know
interject.
we need-
Let me just interject for 1 second, task force member, to say that we've combined we've combined numbers 4 and 8. Atonement will fall under accountability. We also have been talking about the prioritization of these such that they wouldn't all meet simultaneously.
Right.
So I'm not refuting your points. I just wanted to clarify that you're right that it's too many to meet at one time, but I think that's not the task force's intention.
If I may continue, I really
Sure.
think if you're going to train, you need to train people to a certain culture and climate. When you recruit and you hire and retain people, they need to fit a certain culture that you want to perpetuate. If we want police to be engaged with the community who do not profile, who do not rearrest, that's all part of training. But that's also part of, racial and other profiling disparities. It's part of their training. And it's part of the police culture. Perhaps if we named the subcommittee, police life or something, I think it could work. If it doesn't and people vote to split, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with whatever the majority votes for. I'm just making a case for combining some of these subcommittees because I'm really afraid we might not have, enough people to go around.
Okay.
I agree.
Oh my goodness. Task Force Member Horton, you gave me a start.
Sorry about that.
That's quite all right. Task Force Member Williams.
All right. I wanted to speak to combining the training with the recruitment. As a corporate trainer, I can tell you that those two go together in so many areas as far as the type of individuals you're looking for, the testing, the hiring, the retention. Retention goes directly, is a connection with training. Is it something that they need to be retrained on? Is it something? So these things go hand in hand when it comes to training. These two areas work together in recruiting. As a matter of fact, most recruiting goes back to training to ask, what type of individuals are you looking for? What, personalities, how they interact with people, all that comes from the training. And then the recruitment part takes it, and then they go out and they look for these types of people. So I think combining these two really will work. It's just what we're looking at, how we're laying it out.
Okay.
That retention piece has to do, it's gonna connect right back to training.
Okay. I appreciate that. It's great to have your perspective directly from the work you do. Thank you very much. Task Force Member Haben.
I think we're getting really bogged down here in the minutia. Part of this, for me anyway, is because you only have like 2 or 3 word, not even sentences, points. I think that if we're looking at what is the work that these subcommittees are going to do and what is the expected outcome, for me, that's much more helpful than, I think that's just more helpful for me.
Understood.
I think that, I'm okay with keeping training separate. However, I do really agree with what Penny Williams just said. I mean, it is all of a piece.
Okay.
And so that's it. And
right. So no, you don't need to. But after I go to Task Force Member Flickema, and then I see Chair Krigler, I want to move on from this one. I know Task Force Member Zaldivar had some other suggestions on combinations. So I think we're getting close to the final list so that then Task Force members can express their preferences. And that's where I want to head. Task Force Member Flickema and then Chair Krigler.
Thank you. If we do get to a point where we're combining the list, is there a possibility that, and I understand that I think some of this will be answered as we prioritize these, but is there what an opportunity, and I think I know what the answer is, for us to be able to, if there is a topic in the combinations that we don't tease out as much, can that be picked up in a future subcommittee? So for example, with the conversation around training, if we don't separate things out and we end up focusing a lot on training, can the work of the subcommittee shift? Is there room for that to be able to focus mostly on training and then change gears and say, we've decided we're going to focus on training for the rest of this, however many weeks we've chosen. And then these other topics, for the interest of what we're doing, can we table them for our next however many weeks we plan to do subcommittees?
It's not my place to answer the question that you're asking, but I will say that it is up to you all. I mean, there really is no, restriction in that regard. I mean, these are your subcommittees. So you all could choose to do exactly what you just described. I mean, it would really be up to the subcommittee to make that decision.
Okay. Right. And so I think that's where what I'm saying is that whoever is on the subcommittee would have the authority to be able to say, this is the issue that we're prioritizing. This is of the ones that we're looking at. This is the one we want to make sure. Maybe this is the dominant issue that trickles down into all the other issues. And this is going to be kind of the primary flavor of how we're talking about this.
Okay.
So
I appreciate the input, Aubrey. Chair Krigler.
Okay, I want to say that definitely I liked what Aubrey was saying, and definitely agree with her that, yeah, that could be done. And then in regards to what Penelope said, in regards to combining the training, I think that's feasible. I think that makes sense.
Okay.
So I think that does. So
let me go back to Shimon, to Task Force Member Blanchard, because I know you'd spoken a couple of times on the training matter. Can I ask you if training were given priority in a combined subcommittee to where it was dealt with, on its own in that subcommittee with some focus, do you think that would alleviate any of your concerns about it, losing some of its, significance or the opportunity for it to be dealt with?
Well, I think as Task Member Flickerman said, we do determine the subcommittees, we do determine the focus. So I'll be fine with that.
Okay. Thank you very much. So I think I'm going to, just based on what I've heard here, I'm going to have the note takers shift 5 to be combined with 2 and 3 for us to then review as we are determining who wants to join which subcommittee. So I'll have maybe Cameron, if she's got screen control, take that over. I want to go back to Task Force Member Zaldivar. Chair Krigler, I saw your hand.
Okay, what was the last thing that you said? You were combining it with 2 and 3?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you bring that back up, please, so I can look at it again?
Yeah, sure. Cameron, would you? Cameron, if you could reshare. Okay. If we could go back. There we go. So there was, I guess, let me clarify from Penny and others, were we saying just combine number 5 with number 2, or number 5 with numbers 2 and 3?
I thought it was 5 and 2.
5 and 2. 5 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
5 and 2. There it is. All right, very good. So it's just 2 and 5, Cameron. My apologies. Okay.
No problem. Thank you.
So let me go to Task Force Member Zaldivar. You had a suggestion.
Are we starting personal speeches then?
Well, not quite. I just because I thought you had a suggestion for another combo. If you do, please share it.
I do, but it requires some explanation.
Yeah, no, please.
Okay, so then I hope I want to let just everyone know kind of how I'm thinking about everything. I see really 3 committees on this out of all 9 to be explored, and I joined this committee to re-envision, to transform, and to really make a change on how we are policed in our society. So I would like to make the motion to combine 1, 2, 3. Since 2 is already with 5, that includes 5. and 9. The reason why I say this is because the subcommittee assessing the allocation of resources, like I'm a firm believer that this is the reason why our communities are being harmed are because we are not investing in them in the safety of our citizens and the health of our citizens and the access to education on them. And instead we're investing on really reactive policies like surveillance, like, destructive, like putting people in jail, like that harms our society. So if subcommittee number 9 would be a bigger overlooking body to combine the other ones, that's important because police presence is all about money that we're putting into how many police, like where are they, and how after hours, overwork hours, right?
Okay,
So
Kevin, let me interject for
how
just a
big is
minute.
our department? Yeah,
Kevin, yeah, if I could interject for just 1 second, only for clarity, since we've got some renumbering here. If you can see the screen, we're at 1 through 7. And so I think what you were saying was 1, 2, and 7. Now, or is it 1, 2, 3, and 7 on this list, or 1, 2, and 7?
1, 2, 3, and 7. Why? Police presence is how often police get called to do the duty, right? Especially during mental health responses or other type of responses. That's money going to that. There's subcommittee training, recruitment, and hiring retention. I've been saying for the longest time now that we need to look at the size of our police department because, and this will be a conversation, Lally, if you're listening, I've told you that we're going to talk one day, and this is going to be the talk that we're going to have. That's going to be the future of the police department, because with capitalism and all this about infinite growth, I fear looking at 8 city police budgets, that is going to be infinite growth for our police budget as well. And so I want to have that conversation on that. And
Understood.
so that's why it's money. And then police culture and climate, we already know the answers there. I sent out a study. If people look at it, please look at it. We already know that there's disparities. We already know that there's have been centuries of police reform and culture, but it's the duties of the police that are creating the oppression. It's not, it's the roles. And that is why training should be separate. So I'm really trying to get through this fast. Yeah.
No, I appreciate it. So just to reiterate, or just to repeat, your proposal is on this screen that we're looking at now to combine numbers 1, 2, 3, and 7.
Right, because finances will have to be actively involved in all 3 of those categories to see how much money are we putting into ideas or tactics that are harming our communities. And when we talk about harming communities, is obviously the overwhelming presence of hiring, recruiting, and investing in our police department.
Let me just make an observation to you. You know, we had a little bit of a slog there just putting training with any other topic. What I'm wondering is, could number 7, the assessment of allocation of resources, become a part of each of those subcommittees' discussions? Because I think you're going to have a hard time convincing this body to combine training with anything that it's other than what it's already been combined with.
I'm not trying to combine training. And the reason why is because training has to do with the roles a police department plays. So, for example, we know that the Elgin Police Department just came out with a new program to obviously respond to mental health crisis. That is training in itself, right? But if we are to discuss training, we can't just hear about the good things that are happening in the department, because we know there's good things happening, right? We know that there's bad things happening, but I want this role. Well, what I see here is our chance to re-envision those duties of our police department. We don't want our police department to be our student counselors for our kids, right? No, that's inappropriate in my opinion.
And Kevin, the only reason that I'm interjecting here is that I just need to make sure we capture the recommendation on what you want to combine and treat it, and then make sure that we dive deeply into the rest. So let me go to Task Force Member Calamar. But what's on the table here is to combine numbers 1, 2, 3, and 7 from Task Force Member Zaldivar, to combine.
No, not 7. 1, 2, 3. Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing again. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 7. Yes, and then training being its own thing, and the civilian review board being its own thing. And I think those are the 3 major categories we should focus on.
Task Force Member Calamar. Thanks, Kevin.
Kevin, I really think that the issue of finances and time and the allocation of resources, that is a huge topic, and it deserves to stand alone. It will affect all of the other subcommittees. I would like for that to stand alone because I think it's important. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6, I think could be combined. We could call it police procedures and life. I don't know, whatever it is. But that's all about how the police operate, how they train, recruit, all of the things that they perhaps experience, whatever. And the development of a civilian review board, that is separate. In my point of view, and we don't have to take up my point of view, but I see that we can boil these 7 subcommittees down to 3. We got the finances and time, the resources. We have the police, culture, life, procedural, and then we have the civilian review board.
Okay.
So police, public, finances.
Okay. Chair Krigler.
Thank you.
Okay. As an African American from the community, I do have to say, this is one of the first times that we've been able to finally really get these things on the table and get heard. I know of the people that I've talked to in the community who have concerns. They've made it very clear to me that they want to make sure that there is a racial and the other profiling disparities. They want that. They also want a subcommittee on police and culture and climate and the police presence. So I don't think that those things can be broken up because those things have to be looked at and discussed and explained, researched. I just don't think they can and should be combined at this point. I do not want those things to be overlooked. As well as we said, the from school to prison pipeline, we can't have those things overlooked, and they will get overlooked. They have been overlooked for a long time. So
Okay.
I'm not in agreement with it.
Okay. Well, there are 2 proposals, if you will, on the table. One is Task Force Member Zaldivar's, and one is Task Force Member Gallagher's. Task Force Member Zaldivar was proposing to combine numbers 1, 2, 3, and 7. Kevin, am I right?
Yes,
1, 2,
and
3,
I hear
and 7.
Jules' concern. Racial and other profiling disparities may even go into what our current state is in the city and how certain communities are being underinvested than others.
Okay, but you're still proposing 1, 2, 3, and 7 as a combo. And then Task Force Member Calamer, I think, was doing 1, 2, 3, 4 combined, 5 standing alone, 6, I would assume, combined with 1 through 4, Tish?
Yes, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. 5
Okay.
standing alone, 7
7
standing alone.
Okay. Folks,
Because
I don't know.
1, 2, 3, 4, and 6 are all about the behavior of the police.
Mm-hmm.
From training, from recruitment training, all the way up to, life on the job.
Right. Okay, well, folks, I don't know a more efficient way to dispense with these 2 suggestions than to just get a straw poll. And so I'd like to do that. And so let's start with, I'm sorry, Task Force Member Haven, did you want to say something?
I did. I'm in agreement, in complete agreement with what LaJewel said. We've already watered down, just in the, in this 1 hour that we've been on this call, the subcommittee on police presence. That cannot be, because there are different definitions, and by the time that it was, we just finished talking about it, that had completely changed. We have to keep that, I believe, separate. Definitely, the subcommittee on racial and other profiling disparities, that needs to stand alone, because if it gets combined, it will get watered down. Okay. And we'll forget. So I don't know what I would do, but I really right now I will not be supporting either one of the 2 recommendations for the final combinations.
Task Force Member Blanchard.
Yes, would it be possible, like we said before, to prioritize, say, 4 now, and then table 3, and once we set a goal for those 4 to be done at a certain time, and so we can give the attention to the remaining 3.
That was what was expressed in prior meetings, and that was the thought, I think, for tonight, was to get the final list and then get a subset of that as the priority list. So yes, sir, that was what was intended. I have to say I'm torn here, folks. I certainly can take a straw poll and a vote. I also, though, feel that, there are a number of folks who feel strongly on both sides of this, meaning some really want to combine and some really don't. That suggests to me that there isn't much consensus as it relates to the combination. So we could take a vote, but it could be quite close and a little bit divisive. So I guess to Task Force Member Calamer and to Zaldivar, I would just ask, what would be your preference here?
I'm all for the body moving forward.
What was that? I'm sorry, Tish.
I'm all for the body moving forward. You don't have to take me up on my suggestion. That was just how I would combine according to theme.
I understand.
Yeah. So
Kevin,
yeah,
you were
we
about
don't have to go with what I said.
Kevin, you were about to say something, and then Pastor Blaylock, Mr. Horton.
I would like to continue with the motion of proposing of combining these subcommittees. And in all honesty, unless I would like to hear, at least from the people who do oppose it, where do you want to go with the conversations on culture, recruitment, hiring, retention, and presence? And that is because we know, I mean, we're here already. We already know that police culture and climate is inappropriate. Like, it's in the data. I just shared it. If you look at it, it's our African-American community make up 25% of the arrests, while representing 5% of the population. We know that. So what is there to conversate about this right now?
Okay. Let's see. Pastor Blaylock, Mr. Horton, Mr. Blanchard, and then I'm not sure if Denise had another comment, but I'll start with Pastor Blaylock.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we suggested as being the leadership team, that we will take at least 3 or 4 of these committees in subcommittees and work with them in 2 or 3 months, and then look at it, and maybe longer than that, 3 or 4 months, and then take the other, and I think somebody just suggested that, and then take the other and work with that the next 2 or 3 months, that we was going to separate this. What happened to that proposal? Did I miss that?
No, sir, you didn't miss anything. We just had a suggestion from subcommittee members, from Task Force Member Zaldivar, and he wanted to be heard.
I heard both of their suggestion, but I totally agree with LaJewel that we have to be careful, because I don't want to get none of these things. And I think that was Mr. Blanchard concerned about training. We don't want to get none of these things mixed up. I think we need to go ahead and move the agenda forward and look at what we think we need to deal with right now. I tell you this, the subcommittee on developing the civilian review board is already in, and we got a lot of information on that.
That one might finish its work relatively quickly, given what's already been done.
We can do it very quickly.
Let me go to Mr. Horton and Mr. Blanchard, and then let me see if I can move us forward.
Well,
go ahead,
Larry, I never been.
I'm sorry, Pastor. I'm sorry, Pastor. I didn't mean to cut you off.
It's okay. go right ahead.
All right. Mr. Horton and then Mr. Blanchard.
Okay, so for anyone that might be afraid that what subcommittee they have strong feelings on might get whitewashed or washed over, I don't really see that happen. Let's say number 5 is my thing, and we go with Tish's plan to have just 3. So in that subcommittee, I would be the loud voice in that committee. That would be my thing in that committee, for me to not get watered down. So those of you that have fears on your feelings going to the wayside, I don't really see that happening. If you're part of that subcommittee, you would just be that strong voice in that committee. And there's nothing that says we can't always come back and rehash it and go a separate way or go a stronger way. But if we keep at this and we're feeling so strong about it that we can't, make a consistency, that we're not going to really make it anywhere fast.
Thank you very much, Mr. Horton. Mr. Blanchard.
Well, I'm not saying that, the other subcommittees should be forgetting about, but I'm just saying that if, in an effort to move forward, we need to prioritize the ones that we have now. And then those that we come back, we're not paying any less attention to it. It's just that the ones that we're prioritizing now, we want to, like I said, set an end goal, set an end date to have those done so we can give the same attention to the remaining subcommittees. That's all I'm saying.
Task Force Member Calmer.
Thank you. Let me just explain some of my thinking here. I think this can work. I see that we have themes running through these now 7 subcommittees. There's a very strong theme on what the police do, their policies, procedures, training, behavior. I think that can be looked at by one subcommittee. Another strong subcommittee and theme, which we heard the passion of Marcus Banner and others, is the development of a civilian review board. And work has already been done to try and get that going. I think that could be a strong subcommittee that needs to be launched right away. And then we have the issue of how are resources being allotted, finances and time. I see those as the 3 themes: the life of the police,
right,
how the public can weigh in, and how they're allotting their resources, financial and time. So I think we can tackle all 3 at once. If not, then let's prioritize. And I'm willing to go with consensus and what people vote for.
Okay. Well, I think at this point it would be helpful just to take a poll to see where everybody is. I'll start with Task Force Member Zaldivar's proposal. He proposes combining numbers 1, 2, 3, and 7. 1, 2, 3, and 7. So a subcommittee would look at police presence, training, recruitment, hiring, retention, and promotion, police culture and climate, and the allocation of resources. 1, 2, 3, and 7. So if that's a combination that you support, please raise your hand. Okay, I counted 2 hands for that. On the Calmer proposal, if I may, to combine, and Tish, help me here, I believe we said 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6 would be one subcommittee. 5 would stand alone as civilian review board, and allocation of resources would stand alone. So you have numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6 combined, 5 standing alone, and 7 standing alone. Would folks supportive of that combination please raise your hand? I counted 3. So folks, I think that if it's okay, with all respect due to Tish Calmer and Kevin Zaldivar, I think we're going to move ahead for now with an eye towards at least narrowing the list by priority and revisiting this as we go. But I think your points were well taken and I appreciate them.
I will certainly respect and support what the group comes up with.
All right, very good. Here's what I'm going to suggest. Well, actually, I don't know if I'm going to suggest this or not. Would you indicate if you need a break? I'm okay to keep going, but do folks need a break? Let me know. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Task Force Member Haben?
What time is it?
It's 7:18.
Yeah.
Oh, no, there need no break now. 7:18.
Oh, I need a break.
Oh, you need a break? Okay, well.
We'll return at 7:25.
Denise, are you still smoking, Denise?
Yes, Steve, you know me so well.
We'll be back at 7:25 for members of the public who are watching. Thank you.
Thank you.
I concur with Denise.
You're funny. Thank you.
We will resume here in 2 minutes. 2 minutes, please.
Sherman Blair, how you doing? Sherman, are you on mute, Sherman Blair?
Is that you, Walter?
Yes. How are you doing? You've been very quiet.
Yeah. Very interesting, though.
We got to move this agenda, Sherman.
Got to get it on.
Yes. I saw your wife at the funeral.
Yeah.
She's been very helpful. Tell her thank her.
Yeah, she's on the ball.
She is.
Yeah, Wilbur, he'd be.
Oh yeah, you know, I didn't think I could go to that funeral, but I'll be there.
Yeah.
Will you be there?
No.
Man, what's happening with you? You don't come to funerals no more.
I just got so much things going on, like on 4 boards, and you know, just a lot going on.
Okay.
I can relate, Mr. Blair. Not that I'm eavesdropping, but I can I can hear your conversation. Folks, let's come back. We do want to finish by 8 o'clock tonight. I want to start by commending this body for coming up with a list of subcommittees. This is hard work. There's a lot of sensitivity here, and there are a lot of topics for you all to cover, and it's very significant that you have gotten to this point. What we intend to do next is to give each task force member who's here with us a chance to share the subcommittees they think they would like to serve on, and any others that they think should be prioritized. So this is meant to be a relatively short opportunity for each person to contribute, but it's very important so that we can begin to assemble the subcommittees, get their meetings underway, and get their work started. So I'm going to be going to each task force member in turn and asking what subcommittee or subcommittees you would like to join, and which other ones you might think should be prioritized. And I would caution that it's helpful to limit the priority number to about 4, just in terms of the logistics of our being able to support all the subcommittees meeting at one time. So please try to restrict yourself to 4 or fewer that would be prioritized. So it's what I'd like to serve on and what else I think should be prioritized. So with that, I think Task Force Member Blair, if you'd be open to being our first contributor here, I'd love to hear from you, sir.
Number 1.
You'd like to serve on subcommittee number 1?
Yep.
Are there others that you think ought to be prioritized at this first phase? Okay. Let me go next to Task Force Member Rivera.
Hello, Larry.
Hi.
I would like to, subcommittee number 1, 4, and possibly 5.
Those are the ones on which you'd like to serve, or the priority, or both?
Serve in that order. I don't know how many we could serve it on once.
Okay.
I'm also interested in the financial resources, but I don't want to take on too much.
Okay, so 1, 4, 5, and 7 are of interest to you in one
Yes.
form or another. Okay, and I just want to check in with Cameron and Sheila, make sure you guys are tracking. You both are tracking?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, very good. Task Force Member Haben, I saw your hand. Did you have something?
I probably forgot to put my hand down.
Okay.
So I would like to serve on number 5 and number 6. And I believe my top 4 priorities would be 5, 6, 4, and 1.
So serving on 5 and 6, did you say?
Yes.
And prioritizing 1, 4, 5, and 6.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Let me go next to Task Force Member Areola.
As for priorities, I would say Civilian Review Board, which is 5, allocation of resources, which is 7, and accountability and discipline, which landed on, I believe that's number 6. For my personal involvement, preferences are 6 and 7, accountability and atonement, as well as allocation of resources.
Great, thank you very much. Task Force Member Bailey, if you're hopefully still with us.
Okay, I wish I could serve on all of them, but since I can't, I'll take 1, 2, and 3.
1, 2, and 3.
Sure.
Thank you very much. Let's go to Task Force Member Williams next.
2, 3, and 4.
2, 3, and 4.
Mm-hmm.
Can't very well keep a professional trainer off of a subcommittee on training now. That would be criminal.
Yeah.
Task Force, thank you very much. Task Force Member Zaldivar.
I believe that 2, 7, and 5 should be prioritized, and I would like to serve primarily on 7 and 5 if I can, and then 2 for sure as well. So
Thank
7 and 2
much.
for sure, 5 if I can.
2, 7, 2, 5, and 7. Thank you, sir. Let's go next to Task Force Member Flickema.
I would be interested in serving on 1, 7, 6, or 2. And I think that 1, 7, 5, and 3 should be prioritized.
Got it. Serve on 1, 7, 6, or 2. Prioritize 1, 7, 5, and 3.
Yep.
Okay, let me pause for just a minute and make sure Cameron and Sheila are not about to have their hands fall off. You guys okay?
Got it.
Okay, very good.
Yep.
Let's go to Task Force Member Calamer.
As priorities, I believe it should be 5, 7, and 2. And I would like to serve on 2 and 7.
2, 5, and 7 for priority. Serve
Yes,
on
and-
2 and 7.
Exactly, thank you.
Of course. Moving on to Task Force Member Brockway.
Yeah, I think priority wise, it should be 2, 5, and 7. For participation, I would like to be on 7 for sure. And then the second one's around 1 and 3.
2, 5, and 7 for your priorities. And then service on, you said 7, 1, and 3. Did I get that right? Okay. Thank you.
That's correct. Yep, you got it.
All right. Task Force Member Horton.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Serve on 2 and 4. And 2, 3, 4 would also be priority.
Serve on 2 and 4. Priority 2, 3, and 4. Thank you, sir. Mr. Blanchard, Task Force Member Blanchard.
Priority will be 2, 5, 6, and 7. And I would like to serve on 2, 5, and 7.
Priority 2, 5, 6, and 7. Serve on 2, 5, and 7. Okay. Let's see. Chair Krigler.
Okay. Let's see here. I'm thinking that I want to serve on, I know 4, 6, and I guess 1. And I'm looking at number 7 as well. And then the priority, I think, should be given to 1, 4, and I think 7.
Priority 1, 4, and 7. You're wanting to join, did you say 4, 6, and 7?
4, 6,
And 1.
And 1.
7, and 1. Yes.
Okay. All right, thanks. And then going through my list here. Pastor Blaylark.
Let me unmute myself. I think because of the flexibility of my schedule, I think I'm going to serve on all of them if they meet in the daytime.
Okay.
If they meet in the daytime, I can serve on any one of these committees. However, I think that the 5 should be prioritized because we got that almost finished, and we should push that through very fast so we can get that going.
Okay.
So the council can look at that. That should be a priority.
Very well.
And if I just have to serve on one, I probably would take a 1 and 4 if I have to just serve on any one of these. However, if you meet at night, then I'm just going to be on the leadership team and just pray for you all on every one of them.
I'm thinking about how in football, how sometimes I have to be all-time quarterback. Walter is all-time committee member.
Yes.
He's going to be on all of them. All right. Thank you very much, Pastor. So I believe I've gotten to everyone. Have I missed anyone? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm sorry, Norma.
Larry, so we have everyone who voted for a committee they'd like to serve. We also have a couple who didn't prioritize, but I don't know if we're getting.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So I didn't hear prioritize from Bailey, Williams, Blair, and Rivera.
Bailey, Carol.
Okay. I couldn't prioritize because they're all dreadfully important.
That's okay. You can abstain if you'd like.
No, I said all 7 are important.
All 7 are important. Okay, so you're prioritizing all 7. Understood. Let's see. Penelope, Penny Williams, did you want to prioritize 4 of them?
Yes. 4, 2, and 3.
4, 2, and 3. Okay. Yeah. Also known as 2, 3, and 4, 4, 3, and 2. Let's see. I think we said Task Force Member Blair, did you have priority subcommittees on this list that you wanted to share with us? I think you're shaking your head no. I can't hear, unfortunately. Okay, I think we can.
The last one, Larry, and I would like to prioritize number 5, 4, and 7.
5, 4, and 7.
Correct.
Thanks, Cynthia. Norma, does that give us all of the? Okay, very good. So it's going to take a moment, of course, for us to tabulate all of this and get it compiled. What I'd like to do is go back. Let me just check my slide deck here. I want to just go over briefly what we anticipate as a sort of a process. Cameron, if you could go back to slide number 2 on this deck, I think it's. Thanks. Yeah, and I apologize. I'm sorry, one back before that. Thank you. I know this is font is small, so I will just read it out. I'm in the middle here where it says brief review of proposed process for subcommittee. Here's what we anticipate. Once we have determined the priority of the body, the priorities of the body, and who wants to serve on what, we will then assemble that group of people to select a date and time that works best for you all. And hopefully there would be a standing recurring meeting so that folks could mark it on their calendars. But if we have to, we can schedule meeting by meeting. But that'll be something that the facilitation team will assist with. There will be a member of the facilitation team that will be available to each subcommittee so that we can assist in whatever way is helpful, whether it's facilitating during the meeting or just helping in the background. At that first subcommittee meeting, the hope is that at minimum, the group would enumerate the initial concerns that they want to address and request any information from either the department, the police department, the city of Elgin, broader research needs from other police departments, what have you, but essentially take an inventory of the things that you most want to be sure get addressed in your committee. In your subsequent meetings, you would receive information, deliberate on that information, and then make recommendations as a subcommittee to send to the full task force for their approval. The key here is you don't have to wait until you're entirely finished with your work as a subcommittee before you funnel recommendations to the task force. As soon as the subcommittee reaches consensus, the goal would be to have that consensus be conveyed to the task force. If the task force concurs, that goes straight to the city council so that the city can begin moving on and implementing the recommendations that you all are generating as quickly as possible. So it could very well be that the subcommittees have a couple of meetings and already have something they want to bring forward, especially with the Civilian Review Board. Let's get that over to the task force. Let's convene the task force, get a vote, get a consensus there, and then that will be officially relayed to the City Council as a task force recommendation. We may potentially pause the meetings of the full task force to allow everyone to attend one or more subcommittee meetings. And as recommendations come out of the subcommittee, then we would make a full task force meeting. We can figure that out here in just a bit as it relates to December 16th. But I think that our team is anxious to get the subcommittees going and then determine when the full task force should reconvene based on there being something to review from the subcommittees. So once again, we'll get the subcommittees organized for a date and time that works for the majority, get them initially together to make sure we understand all of their concerns and information needs, and then at subsequent meetings provide information, allow them to help them deliberate, make their recommendations up to the full task force to hopefully get conveyed to the council. Task force member Haben.
Thank you. How are we going to incorporate the priorities and the choices of the folks who are not on this Zoom meeting?
It's a great question. I mean, my instinct would be to send them emails and to have them convey it to us via email. They certainly matter. Their priorities matter. And so I think we can give sort of preliminary results of the inventory here. And then, as I say, pursue that following.
Larry,
okay. Larry, yes, Joe. Yeah, please.
Just wanted to jump in with just a question, maybe for clarity. If we're prioritizing the process you just described, we're going to do the first set of priority subcommittees and then repeat that. Is that the thinking? I just want to.
When you say repeat it, Joe, what do you mean?
Well, so if we're doing some as priority, whether it's first 3 or first 4, whatever it is, the process you just described is how the subcommittees are going to work. At some point, that first round needs to end.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, they would. That's right. Yeah. So in other words, if we have, like Joe said, if we have 3 or 4 subcommittees initially, they'll have their meetings hopefully over the next 2 to 3 months, at which time they would disband as a subcommittee, transmit any remaining recommendations up to the full task force, and then we would bring the other subcommittees forward to do their work. So yes, that's correct. And we can certainly intersperse subcommittee and full task force meetings, as needed, as available. Obviously, it's helpful that everyone has held the first and third Thursdays for task force work, but we can certainly use this time for subcommittee meetings as opposed to full task force meetings when that makes sense. Okay, let me ask Cameron, Sheila, and I think Norma was helping out as well. Are we in a position to share any results yet?
I'm
It's okay if we aren't.
there.
Almost there. All right, take your time.
Yes.
Take your time. Let me. If the city manager. Oh, I see. Task Force Member Rivera. Go ahead.
Thank you, Larry. Well, I want to apologize for missing the last meeting. I was ill and not able to attend. I did rewatch the video though, and I wanted to just ask about a few things. The K-9 presentation was canceled.
Oh, yeah. Your questions will be answered here just in a moment. Cynthia, we've got a batch of topical updates, and that's one of them. So I'll get to you.
Well, it was actually, I just wanted to propose that if we have a presentation scheduled, that it remains, it's on the agenda that we present. I know Chief Lally took, time and resources to present that, and I want to make sure we honor that work. And the public would have benefited from that presentation. There was also a comment made by Shimon about having a timeline regarding certain issues that have come up, and I fully agree with that. I think that maybe a 3 to 5 year timeline is very effective, and unfortunately we cannot change what has happened in the past. And I think we all agree that there were some definitely wrongdoings that have taken place, but with cases that have been closed, binding arbitration, there isn't much that we can do about certain past events. But if there's pending cases, current complaints, I want to propose like a 3 to 5 year timeline that we could focus our efforts on.
Okay.
Yeah, not to diminish what has happened in the past. I think the atonement, what Denise has mentioned, is just a great way to begin that healing process. And yeah, I also agreed with Tish about fast tracking the Citizen Review Board, as it's noted here. And yeah, like the current complaints about, the dog incident that Mark spoke about, the forced engagement, those really piqued my interest. I want to learn more about that as well.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. And I don't mean to stifle your comments, but we are at Norma Ramos in just a moment is going to provide some updates on a couple of those topics specifically. Before we get to that, if the city manager is still available, I wanted to call on him for just a moment.
I am, Larry.
Hey, Mr. Manager. Just wanted to include you in the updates as it relates to the task force meetings. There obviously has been an interest amongst task force members to, at some point, be able to transition. And I know that you, as the public administrator, have done some evaluation of in-person meetings, and wondered if you could share that with the body.
Sure. Earlier this week, wrote to both my senior staff of directors and the city council, stating that with the recent spike in COVID-19 cases, not only in Kane County, but obviously nationwide, and along with the holiday season and the newly emerging Omicron variant, those instances have created valid concerns about the continuation of in-person meetings, particularly during the holiday season. And while there is still a lack of information on the potential impact of these, so made a recommendation, or it's a recommendation of the city's policy through the end of January is going to be to conduct board and commission meetings virtually to ensure the safety, not only of the city staff, but all the attendees and any members of the public that are present. Kind of going back to the future for what we practiced during the uncertain days of the pandemic, it worked very well for the city organization and the public during that time period. And I think the abundance of caution is warranted in this instance.
Thank you for that very much. And then I know you've been working also in the background on the notion of interpreters and Spanish interpretation.
Yeah, at last night's city council meeting, it was actually part of a broader deliberations on budgets. The city is going to be hiring a full-time Spanish translator, but for the purposes of the task force, there's a recognition that the use of a translator to provide simultaneous translation will not be occurring for any city council meetings or any board and commission meetings. Translators will be available for those instances where board and commissions or the city council is actively engaging with the public, and will have translating services available to persons who wish to comment who don't have command of the English language. That's the plan.
All right. Thank you for those updates. Let's see. I'm torn as to whether to turn to Norma next on topical updates or get the scoring or the tabulation from Cameron.
You can. I can just go next. There are just a couple of communication updates in terms of a couple of things that we wanted to share. With the canine video and policy, we're still moving forward with some pieces to that. The leadership team, Task Force Member Banner and Chief Lally are meeting together to actually think of a way how we can best disseminate that information and share that with the group going forward. So we'll have more information on December 16th in terms of like where that information will be and how we'll share that in the next couple of weeks. So we for sure will get that to you all. A couple of other updates is the collective bargaining. The contract and agreement has been reached already for 2022, but we did also go ahead and just update the box with that information. So if you have access to the box folder, if you have difficulties, please just let us know. We posted that during this week as well. Another quick update on our end is in terms of data and the crime trends. We talked about the dashboard that's available. And so we'll work with you all in your subcommittees to make sure to find a way, like how do we best get that information to you all and making sure that everyone has access to that information. And then just a couple of other updates. Chair Krigler, do you have a question?
No, I was just going to say, I'm also going to be in the attendance of that meeting with Banner and Chief Lally as well.
Yes, for sure. The leadership team is our chair, co-chair, and our spokesperson, as I referenced that. And then just quickly, if you have additional resources, please send them our way. We will add them to the box folder. Kevin, we did get your email yesterday. We have your Google Drive folder, so we'll get that uploaded for the task force members as well, and we'll send that with an update and an email information for the team here as well. And then if you have any questions, continue to use the policing task force at cityofelgin.org, and we'll make sure we are updating the box folder with information and resources that you all are sharing with us. And we're also noting them within the box folder as well. So there's a reference sheet in terms of the request that was made and the attached resource in the box folder.
I want to really give a shout out to Norma. I see Tish Kellemer. I'll get to you in 1 second. I just want to give Norma a big shout out because there's been a lot of materials that have had to, get tracked and, a lot of requests, and Norma's really helped us to kind of manage that. And I know Cameron has played a role in that, Sarah as well. But big thanks. I just wanted to interject one additional thing on the collective bargaining agreement, because I know that was of special interest. I think that this task force will have an opportunity come spring of 2022 to give input on the negotiation of the subsequent contract. So the contract, as Norma said, has been executed for this coming year. But as I understand it from Chief Lally, they will begin renegotiation in the summer of 2022 for the following year. And so this body is in a position to offer recommendations and give input on what should be included in that renegotiation. So we'll revisit that at the appropriate time. Task Force Member Calmer, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask, what is the nature of the meeting between Marcus Banner and Chief Lally? And is it something that the task force should be apprised of?
Chief, you're certainly welcome to chime in. I mean, my understanding is that, part of the difficulty as it relates to the specifics of video attached to particular stops is legal restrictions on what can be released to whom. And so I know that the chief wanted to meet with Task Force Member Banner in part to just understand what specific videos he wanted to see and then the nature of how they could be disseminated. But Chief, let me not speak for you. Please, if you'd like to share any more about that conversation.
Yeah, just generally, I met with Marcus to really narrow down his request as it relates to what stops he was talking about. We were able to figure out what particular incident that he was speaking of. And so when we meet next week, I'll be able to provide him information about the call. Also just, being mindful of privacy rights, and also give him a little bit background about the K9 program, which can help to explain some of the things and the reasons why we do what we do. So it's, to be able to have a conversation where there's probably going to be a lot of questions and to have some meaningful conversation, and for people to be able to understand the context of what's going on, not just showing a video and then now, not having any conversation. So, so that was basically the extent, was figuring out what he was talking about, figuring out how we wanted to provide the information in the appropriate way, and making sure that questions were answered. And there was also time for people to express their thoughts. And, so I think we have about a 2-hour meeting planned. And then we'll kind of take it from there.
I want to thank Chief Lally and Marcus in absentia for continuing to work on
Thank
this
you.
important issue. Okay, so we, I think, have, thanks to the super heroic efforts of Cameron Hendrickson and Sheila Brown, I think we have some tabulations. Cameron, are you in a position to share with us?
Yes. So right now the running tallies for prioritizing subcommittees are, let me start here. So number 1 would be subcommittee 5, topic 5 that topic received 8 votes.
Before you continue, let me just so everybody's tracking, why don't I share the presentation so that they can see the numbers. I mean, so they'll know what we're looking at here. So let's see, give me one quick second. I know 5 is a civilian review board, is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry to break your flow there, but
oh, no worries.
Let's see, slideshow. Okay. All right, so we said the top one was number 5, the Civilian Review Board.
Now the number 1 is Civilian Review Board with 8 votes. Second and third place is tied with number 2 and 7. So Subcommittee on Training, Recruitment, Hiring and Retention, and the Subcommittee on Assessing EPD allocation sources are the second and third most prioritized. Then third and fourth and fifth is also tied with subcommittees 1 and 4. So the next 2 are the Subcommittee on Police Presence and the Subcommittee on Racial Profiling and Other Disparities. And then the last 2 subcommittees are also tied with 4 votes. That's Subcommittee 3, or Subcommittee 3 on Police Culture and Climate, and Subcommittee 6 on Atonement and Accountability.
Obviously, we'll brandish these in writing, of course, later on. But huge props to Cameron. If I could, I'd give you a standing ovation for doing all that work so quickly. And Sheila, I know, helped. Can you also just tell us how many people expressed interest in joining each of the committees? Do you have that at the ready, or is that something you still need to tabulate?
I'll have to still tabulate that.
Okay,
but
no problem, no problem. So what we'll do, reflective of Task Force Member Haben's comment earlier, these will be sort of preliminary until we can get input from a couple of other folks who couldn't make it tonight. And then once we have that, we will distribute an email that says, here are our first batch of prioritized subcommittees. Here are the folks who expressed interest in joining. Here is a set of schedule options, and here's the way our first meeting will hopefully take place. So by the next, I would say, week or so, you should be seeing an opportunity to formally attend a subcommittee meeting and move forward in that fashion. We are intending for this body to meet again on Thursday the 16th, as we have been, the first and third Thursdays. So we should be back in session again on Thursday the 16th at 6 o'clock. We will not meet on Thursday, December 30th. I'm sure that was a given to everybody, but just to be clear, we will not meet on December 30th. I think that we are at this point intending to continue with a similar kind of first and third Thursday cadence. I know that we may have a challenge with January 6th. We'll need to circle back with you all on that date. And again, I think part of it will be dictated by the subcommittees. So if the subcommittees are, really digging into their work and there's not a whole lot of new recommendations for the full task force to review yet, then we may just have task force meeting slots given over to subcommittees as desired. So I would hold the time still on your calendars, first and third Thursdays at 6, and we will meet on Thursday the 16th at 6. But that may fluctuate a little bit as we move into the new year. Task Force Member Haven.
So this is a process question. So there are a number of subcommittees that are tied. So how do you decide to prioritize if there's a tie?
That'll be something that we'll discuss with Chair Krigler, Co-Chair Cordova, and Pastor Blaylark, and just see where they come down on it. I think we'll take their recommendation on that.
Okay.
And when do we move? Are we going to have that same decision? Because I'm ready to move on some of these things.
Yes, sir. I mean, we will plan to meet with you as scheduled with you, Chair Krigler and Co-Chair Cordova, and then hopefully by the time we meet with you all, we will have gotten all the absent members' preferences, and so we can then move forward from there.
Sounds good.
Perhaps we'll even break some of the ties. That would be nice. Make it a little bit easier. Turning to Joe and Norma and Sarah, do I have anything else that I've missed?
No, Larry, I just want to say, the portion of tonight's meeting that I was going to lead, we yielded to the time to get the committees together, which is good. Also, to Denise's point, I think I agree the ties can be challenging, but we do have 3 that are at the top, even though the second and third are tied. So maybe it's only one other one for us to sort out. But I'm just really glad we're at this point and looking forward to working with the subcommittees and supporting you all on the deep dives on these topics.
And one just quick point, our team, which is primarily the people you know, Norma, Joe, myself, Sarah, Cameron, and Sheila, we also have a couple of senior advisors who are national experts in policing. And so we're able to draw upon their extensive knowledge of policing nationwide, even worldwide, to assist with the subcommittee work. So we look forward to drawing upon that expertise in the weeks and months to come. Chair Krigler, I believe that we're in a position to move to adjourn the meeting, if you're able.
Okay, so at this time, I'm looking to make a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All right, motion received. It is now 8:01 p.m. and meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. Have a good one.
Have a good evening all.
Bye-bye.